Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have quite a cozy session this afternoon, and we'll be talking about what real impact looks like that citizens can see and feel. So I'll give a short presentation. My name is Joe Abba. I'm the former Director General of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms in the presidency. So I'll give a short presentation for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll be inviting Dr. Ekwele and Dr. Odeka to join me on the stage to have a conversation about what impact looks like. Okay. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so as I said, I was DG of the Bureau of Public Service Reforms between 2013 and 2017. And during that time, we compiled all of the reforms that had been done from 1999 till 2014, and assess them as to how effective they have been and what level of impact they've been able to achieve. In doing so, we asked a number of questions, which I want to share with you now to help frame the conversation that we want to have. Okay, so go to the next slide, please. So we asked what we called 10 hard questions. So we assessed all the reforms that had happened since 1999, from reforms in the pension system to reforms in the banking sector, in the oil sector, reforms of Food and Drug Administration done by NAFDAC, reform of the telecom sector. We looked at about 53 different reforms. And in assessing the impact of each reforms, we asked these 10 questions. So number one is, have the reforms improved the quality and quantity of the public services delivered? So are more public services being delivered, and are they being delivered to a better quality? That was the first thing that we asked. The second question is, do more people now have access to services, including disadvantaged groups such as women, young persons, and people with disabilities? So these reforms, has it created more access for more people, including marginalized groups? Then we asked, have the reforms reduced the cost of governance? So has it made it cheaper for government to provide a service? Have the reforms made the service more affordable for citizens? Was the fourth thing that we asked, because you can make the services cheaper, but they will still be unaffordable for the Nigerian on the street. Have the reforms reduced corruption? So as an example, we're just listening to the Honorable Minister for Interior, and one of the reforms he's been driving is the reform of the passports administration system, making it digital to apply for passports and reducing that contact, that human contact, that makes it easier to perpetrate corruption. The sixth question was, have the reforms reduced unnecessary bureaucracy and red tape? So, for instance, like I said, through digitization or making the process less cumbersome. Then we asked, is the reform initiative likely to lead to improved development outcomes? So improved development outcomes include better health care, better education, better security, okay? Longer life for citizens, less poverty. And then we asked, are things improving, staying the same, or getting worse? So you've done these reforms. Have they improved things? Are things just the way they always were, or are they getting worse? And where things are improving, will those improvements endure? And when things are not improving, what should be done to make a difference? So these were the 10 questions upon which we assessed all the reforms that had happened from 1999 to 2014 at the time. And it was only a few of the reforms that were actually able to say yes to all of these things. Only a few of them. Because in some, they may have improved the way of doing things, but have not improved access to people. In some cases, like the passport system that we've talked about, yes, it has reduced red tape. It has reduced the opportunities for corruption, but it's actually a lot more expensive now to get a Nigerian passport than it was before. So it was only very few reforms that were able to answer these 10 questions in the affirmative. But having said that, they formed a good framework with which we could assess all the reforms that have been done. And I think also forms a good framework with which we can have a discussion about what we mean by impact and what it means to citizens. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of impactful reforms that have happened across Africa. So Rwanda's Irembo platform moved dozens of services online such that you don't actually need to go and see anybody in their offices. During COVID-19 in Togo, they were able to send money direct to vulnerable citizens, right? Direct through to their bank accounts without going through any intermediary. In Ethiopia, they deployed tens of thousands of community health workers to rural areas, and that immediately crashed the incidence of maternal and child mortality and improved their human capital development index. Ghana put in place a digital addressing system so that people are no longer saying, no, my address is after the mango tree in Maharaba. Everybody had a digital address system, which meant that if you need to call emergency services, like the ambulance service or the fire service, you can just give them a digital address and they will know exactly where you are. In Nigeria, particularly during the Dora Akunyili era, we did a lot of reforms in Food and Drug Administration that made citizens feel, at least, that if they go and buy a medicine in a chemist, the chances of it being fake were reduced. The reform of our pension system also meant that pensioners are no longer coming to sleep on Ghana Must Go bags outside the office of the head of service. Yes, there are still issues with pension fund administrators not putting people on pensions the month after they retire, but at least more people now get pensions because they are contributing to it. Having said that, that system is currently under attack because everybody wants to opt out of the system and have government pay them pensions without making any contributions. And if we continue along that path, it's only a matter of time before we are back to where we were before, where government can simply not afford to pay everybody a pension. I've just talked about the reforms in the passport administration system that we're talking about. It's made the service faster. It's made it more predictable, so at least now you know that you can expect to get a passport within like 2 weeks without paying anybody a bribe, and it's made it less prone to corruption. Next slide, please. So I think this is the last slide. And so the key question is, what do citizens experience when they come in contact with government? That is actually the real test. And in my experience, a lot of the public service reforms we do is actually about the public service itself, not about the public. And that is the change that I try to drive as DG, to move the focus away from the public service onto the public. Because citizens don't experience government through reforms like the Dr. Phillips reforms, which took away the PEMSEC as the accounting officer, or the Alison Aida reforms that brought back the PEMSEC as the accounting officer. Those are not the ways in which the public experiences reforms. The public doesn't, my grandmother in the village doesn't know about monetization policy, doesn't care about tenure policy, cares about, will I see a doctor when I go to the hospital? Will my grandchildren and great-grandchildren have a teacher to teach them when they go to school? Those are the things that the public cares about. So it's through reforms like in Food and Drug Administration, seeing doctors in hospitals, receiving pensions, having an increased sense of security, that you can actually go out at night in Abuja and not be at risk of one chance and kidnapping. And just like Aigoje Imokwede said, citizens don't judge governments on intentions. We will do this, we will do that, we have a policy of doing this, we have a new policy of doing that. They grade governments on what they experience when they come in contact with government. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. Yeah. So I'll now invite Dr. Ekwele and Dr. Odeka to join me on the stage to share their own experiences and insights. Please. Dr. Odeka, come this way. Or do you? Or you want to sit? Okay. Oh, you want to? Okay, you can sit. Okay. Be the rose among the two thorns. Yeah. Okay. So let me start by asking you to introduce yourselves to our audience.
Dr. Francisca Odeka. If I can take permission from Dr. Joaba to describe myself as a public sector reform expert. You know, when you have a senior person around you, you have to take permission. So I have also, in the past 15, 16 years, taken the journey in relation to implementation of reforms in the federal civil service, i.e. federal public service. But I've also been able to experience reform in other countries, civil service and public service reform, and also been able to understand what it means to say that that reform has had an impact on the citizen. So in terms of comparative analysis of what happens in other climes, I've actually been part of reforms, and also I've been part of the citizen that has experienced that impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Odeka.
I hope I don't, okay. Yes, thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I'm Jake Epele. I am the CEO and founder of an organization today that is known as Staff Africa. We evolved from the Albino Foundation to the All Right Foundation, which is the Simple Tough Africa. And we describe ourselves, and I describe myself as a DEI expert. That means diversity, equity, and inclusion. I do not just advocate and implement policies around disability inclusion only, but I'm also interested in women, youths, and of course, my tough persons with disability. And so I'm sitting in the midst of these experts that have worked so hard to create very impactful reforms. And I've learned a lot from them from a distance. But I'm more focused right now in reforming individuals and community of people. Every day I wake up and I ask my colleagues in the office, and the simple question is, hey guys, whose life have you been able to transform today? Not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow, not yesterday. And so my greatest desire is to see the individuals that I met better than I met them. And I am doing what I'm doing. I think I will close here, Joe. I'm doing what I'm doing because I said to myself that I will be a disservice to this generation if I meet this generation and leave them the way I met them. And so I'm pushed to do mainly what I do, because if you talk about discrimination, I saw it in capital letters. If you talk about abuse, I saw it in Latin letters. If you talk about misuse, I've seen it firsthand. So I have a lived experience, but I'm determined that I will never have to see the next person go through what I've gone through. So to me, that is real reform. And like Dr. Joe said, real reform is not about what you have on paper. Real reform is not policies that are on shelf 11 or 14. Real reform is when I get into the hospital and I see a qualified doctor give me the treatment that I deserve, that I don't have to fly abroad to get the same treatment that I would have gotten here. Real reform is not building 1,000 schools and then you have children being in an empty classroom without a qualified teacher. Real reform is not a civil servant or a public servant who is not willing the job he or she ought to do until you give them one bribe or the other. I think it's important to underscore this as I end. We treat the term bureaucracy as if it's a negative term. It's not. Bureaucracy is actually the process of getting things done. But bureaucracy is negative when in trying to get things done, you refuse to do it simply because certain conditions are not met to make you do it. And so I am so grateful to individuals like you that have worked so hard and assiduously to bring genuine reforms. And I want to also say that please be patient. Reforms takes time, and we will see it in our own time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think it's okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Let me first say, Dr. Odeka, that for very many years, I consciously refused the appellation experts. My claim to fame was that I was not an expert in anything, but that I knew a lot about very many things. And then I went to check the meaning of the word expert, and it just shows somebody that has a high level of knowledge or skill in a particular area. So since then, I haven't been as shy as calling myself an expert as I used to be. I understand that we're supposed to be joined by a PEMSEC from Edo State. Is anybody here from Edo State? No? Okay. All right, so we'll carry on. Okay. So, Dr. Odeka, my first question is, you've worked with public service across different countries, and as you know, they are configured differently. In some places, the civil servants actually deliver. In other places, the civil servants focus on policy, while the wider public servants that work in agencies actually do the delivery and have the tangible impact on the ground. How does a civil servant in Nigeria, for instance, demonstrate impact?
I think I want to start with the point that you made. Okay. So the civil service in Nigeria have, I think for whatever reason, have spent a lot of significant amount of time looking inward. That is, looking at how to make the civil service more efficient in terms of what they do. And those are called reforms. But in more recent times, you have ministries like Ministry of Interior, where you have the minister talking about the reforms and the impact that he has made in relation to those reforms. But one of the things that he said, because it's good to use concrete example, is that he openly said that the reforms that he has done, especially in relation to the passport and other reforms that he has done, have the contribution of the individual civil servants have made it happen. So, which means that in the civil service, you have, in the Nigerian context, you have the civil service do a lot of policy. They develop policies, and those policies are hinged on reforms. And those policies are most likely should be the rider for the actualization of the concrete impact, you know. So the critical question is, does the Nigerian civil servants actually can we actually say that Nigerian civil servants do reforms that impact, or they are drivers of reforms that impact? I think that's the critical question. Do they do reforms that impact, or do they focus on being drivers on reforms that impact? So, for example, you have the executive orders. Okay. So the executive order, you know, there are so many executive orders, and those executive orders evolved from the public sector. They are the drivers. But when you then begin to look at the actual impact, then you begin to move away from the public sector. But whereas in other countries, in other climes, you actually see what we call end-to-end. You see the conceptualization of a reform idea, and you also see the other arm actualize it. You know, and sometimes there's a confusion in this climb. Who reforms, who does what, who conceptualizes, and one of the arguments that I've made sometimes is that you go to the civil service, or sometimes you go to office, and they said, we don't have work to do. You know, and the idea of not having work to do is that they are not actually doing construction jobs or doing activities that perhaps is not in their remit to do. So for me, I think one of the major things in terms of reforms in the public sector is having an understanding of what the public sector is supposed to do, who does what, and understanding how they do what they do, and how that what they do impacts on those who actualize the reform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. And I like the point about people saying they don't have work to do. I actually authored a book called Nigerians in Theory.
Yeah.
And it looks at how Nigerians behave. And there are a few propositions it has. For instance, anybody that calls you chairman in Nigeria or excellency is about to beg you for money. And that when somebody finishes speaking, no matter how loudly you clap, the MC will say, give him another round of applause. Yeah. That's the way we do things in Nigeria. And one of the things I mentioned in that book was that any public sector organization you go to and the staff are idle, check very well the chief executive is corrupt. Because if the chief executive is not corrupt, no matter how small the amount of money they have is, the problems we have in Nigeria is so much that there's no way you will not have work to do. There's no way. But when the chief executive has called the director of finance and accounts, cornered the money, and they're writing memos and moving the money, of course, everybody else will just be helpless coming to work and be doing nothing. So I recognize that challenge completely. Dr. Ekpele, I want to come to you, and I know that you are much more than just about fairness and lack of discrimination, but there's actually something that has worried me for a while that I think I'll be missing an opportunity if I don't ask you. The organization I currently run works in more than 100 countries. So as you can imagine, I travel quite a lot. And in all of my travels, I believe that Nigeria is one of the most discriminatory countries in the world. It's certainly one of the most discriminatory that I've been to. We discriminate against old people. We discriminate against young people. We discriminate against fat people. We discriminate against thin people. We discriminate against fair people. We discriminate against dark people, tall people, short people, people from other religions, people from other tribes, people from different ethnic groups. I cannot think of any group that we don't discriminate against. We discriminate against women. We discriminate against people with disabilities. We discriminate against people who are very well educated. We discriminate against those who are not well educated. There's nobody we don't discriminate against. So I'm wondering what has been your experience in looking at the way we make policies at civil service and government and ministerial level, and the way we deliver services. Because as an example, when I was DG, I was trying to push that we need to have a buildings code that says that at least there should be a ramp in every public building. Anybody, if you're building your own house, that's your own business. But once it's a public building that people can come to, there should at least be a ramp. When we say, oh, we're doing biometric capture, we're doing verification or whatever, we don't think about, okay, can the person even stand? This woman, she's a nursing mother. This person doesn't have use of their legs. How many times will they come for verification? I remember when I was DG again, we were trying to get people registered on NIN. And it must capture your fingerprints. And I have this lady whose fingers were not able to be captured, and there's nothing anybody could do. The only thing that could be done was me using my position as DG to go and see the DG of NIMSI to say there must be a way out. But that's because that woman reached out to me. Imagine the hundreds of thousands of millions that don't have that kind of access. So how does it look to you when you look at these things?
Thank you very much. Thank you even for the work you do for ensuring that people that would have been considered, very vulnerable and marginalized were not marginalized. And I think the problem sometimes that we bother about is to measure the impact of your little effort. One of the things that I try to do is, if I can reach one person and empower that person to reach several other people, I'm done. And so let me bring home to a very good example. I never voted until I was 58. And today I'm 65. So you can imagine what was my challenge, and why is it that I didn't vote? I didn't vote because, one, I can only spend 10 minutes in the sun, I get burnt. And if I keep burning, it would translate to skin cancer. And I'm also to say that, I also want to say that I'm a skin cancer survivor. So I've survived a very deadly skin cancer. Now the problem is there were people, for instance, if you know my relationship with the past INEC chairman, we were friends, but we were also enemies in some area. But in one area, when it comes to inclusive framework, he did very well, and I praised him for that, and there were other areas he didn't do well, and I also told him, So basically, the problem is, one, data. When you don't have data, it's very difficult to implement. I mean, I know the wonderful work you do and the organization that you lead. By the way, you poached one of my staff recently. Oh, no, but it's okay. I trained her well, and she was able to get your job. But that said, data is important, because Mahmoud could not drive, even though I provided the inclusion framework to mainstream disability in the electoral process. He couldn't do anything because he needed data. When Didi Wilson-Jack, who is like a sister to me, was a permanent secretary, in fact, the first meeting she had after she was appointed in then office of the head of service was with me, when she said, look, I really want to help people with disability. And I said, don't do anything if you don't have data. And it's on record that Didi was the one who championed the first disability disaggregated data in civil service. My organization provided the framework and, of course, the actual technical support for that report. Of course, we wanted to scale it up, but, again, negative bureaucracy killed it. So the problem is data. The second problem is let me define it by three things. Whatever you want to do in life, I was told that I will never amount to anything. I was told that I will never be successful. As a matter of fact, I was told that no woman will marry me. So that mentality almost stopped me. But here's three things that I've done. There are three things that anyone can do, whether you're fighting inclusion, women inequality, whatever you do. If you have these three qualities and believe in it and apply them, it works. Number one is will. the will to do something, the will to fight discrimination, the will to bring change, the will to be a reformer, the will to see actualization of the reforms, the will to implement policies. If you have the will, there'll be a way. The second, sir, because when I started my work, I was too passionate that I thought that passion alone would do it. There's a place where your passion will get you to, and the next competence will begin to take place, and that's skills. So I talked about the will, the skills. If you don't have skills to match your passion will die with you. So you need skill. I remember, as I round up, I remember the first interview I had on BBC. They wanted me to talk about my experiences as a person with albinism and what I'm doing and what I want to do and all that. The first thing I did was not to glory in being invited by the BBC. The first thing I did was to go back and research everything that I need to know just in case the question will rattle me. And I did my work, and I had more information than the person could interview me. So skill is very important. If you don't have it, you won't go far. The last, to me, it seems to be most important, is drill. Drill is that tenacity, that doggedness, that never give up spirit that you must have, that when they say to you, you can't do it, you want to prove to them that you can. When they say to you that you can't cross the bar, you want to cross the bar to prove that you can. When my brother said to me that no woman will marry you, I intentionally groomed myself, build the skill, and make sure that I married a wife that is prettier than all their wives. And that's the way to go. So you must have the will, the skill, the drill, and you can change anything and everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, I think we can take a couple of comments or questions from the audience. Anybody has any questions or comments? Yes, sir. Do we have a microphone anywhere? No? Okay, unless you want the one on the podium. Okay, please go ahead. Okay.
Good day, everyone. I said we appreciate the conversation that have been going on. Very educative. But my own is a little bit comment. We have been talking about reform. And the reform that have been going on in MDAs, I believe it is ICT that drive most of these reforms. And in Nigerian context, I want to comment that we have not built most of the infrastructure of ICT, whereby ICT can drive this reform that we are talking. So I want to air a view that our nation should work hard to put infrastructures. Like NEPA, times you come to work the whole day, you won't have power to work. So that's the little comment I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you introduce yourself, please, before you go?
I am Obidigbo. I'm working with the Ministry of Finance.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Obidigbo. Any other questions or comments? Let me take the lady first.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Adaku Ene. I'm a journalist and I work with Radio Nigeria. So I've been listening to the need for reforms, how to make our reforms work. And then Dr. Jake said something about having skills and the tenacity to push your dreams. But I want to ask, a lot of Nigerians, youthful Nigerians, they have passion, they have skills, yet they are stuck. They feel stuck. So I don't know what reforms can break out that wall so that they can, see to achieve their dreams. Because I see a lot of young people, some of them are thriving in entrepreneur. Some of them are, but they can do more. So what is your advice for a way for youths who have big dreams? If they were in America at age 19 or 20, so being Yahoo boys or looking for how to get body parts for rituals, they will be very successful and rich entrepreneurs. So what's your advice for the Nigerian government and system? Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Let me take one more, and then we will answer the three. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Engineer Ozonama Crescent. I work with Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. I want to appreciate the convenience of this discussion because this reform is one of the things that everybody is looking upon. But as in the context of civil service or public service, the problem we normally have there in driving this reform is because of some policies within the public service. Sometimes some staff may have a very good innovation or thinking, but because your boss did not buy in, he will not allow it to see the light of the day. And again, in public service, no matter how intellectual or how articulative you are, as long as you are not directed by your boss to carry out such, that type of thinking may not see the light of the day. So the policy in the public service or in the civil service is one of the issues or problems we have in driving reforms in the civil service. If we can see how we can break that bottleneck or policies in the public service, the reform will work very well. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we will each have a minute to respond. I understand we only have 3 minutes left because the president is here shortly. So the first one about ICT, I agree completely. Most of the successful reforms have been driven by digitalization and the use of ICT. So I totally agree that as a country we need to do more on that. We also need to be aware of how we can better use what we already have. By that I mean that, for instance, when I was DG of BPSR, I gave everybody 1 year to become computer literate. And I told them, and by the way, I don't have any money to train you. And everybody went and became computer literate by having their children teach them. And at the end of 1 year, some 95% of the bureau knew how to use the computer just by being able to work on their smartphones, which everybody has. Radio Nigeria, I'm always grateful to Radio Nigeria because my late father retired from Radio Nigeria, one of the most cerebral people ever. And it was Radio Nigeria that imparted in him and then in us the benefits of hard work, of study, of integrity, of merit. So I'm always grateful to Radio Nigeria for what it has done in my life and that of my family. The question you raised is a very pertinent one, and there's a big difference between education and skills. So Dr. Ekwele said, for instance, that we had poached one of his people. And one thing we do in my organization is we don't respect degrees. If you like, have a first class from Harvard. That's your business. You must come and write a test for us. And that test that you will write, we will switch off the autocorrect on the laptop and switch off the spell checker. So we must know that you can communicate, and we will not ask you anything technical, because anything we want you to know, we will teach you. We will ask you something like, if you were to be president of Nigeria today, what are the first 3 things you will tackle? That's all we will ask you, because we will test your ability to think, we will test your ability to write. Most young people in Nigeria, all that they can tell you is, I have a bachelor's degree in this. That's all they can tell you. So there's a difference between education and skills, and we're finding in the market that very many people are educated, but completely lacking in any skills. And that's why, for instance, for my own children, whenever they're on long vacation, I have them in EMAB learning how to fix phones. I have them working in their mother's shop, learning how to account for money and how to market themselves and attract customers. I have them doing internships in very many places, just learning different skills, which, somebody was saying, oh, you are a billionaire. How can your daughter is selling bend down select? She's selling the bend down select as a side hustle, because she has learned that skill of selling from her mother who runs a shop. So, I was the lead speaker at MIT 2 years ago, and every single student I spoke with, nobody was looking for a job when they come out. Everybody was startup. I want to start this. Nobody graduated from MIT looking for work, not one that I met. So we need to change that mentality that, once I go and study BSc in this and I go and do youth service, the world now owes me a living by giving me a job. It doesn't work like that anymore. The final one about the gentleman that talked about policy and your bosses at the top, you too will become a boss one day. And you realize that you actually have more information than the people reporting to you. So sometimes what you see as your boss just being difficult is sometimes because they just have more information than you do. At other times, there could be other reasons. There could be corrupt benefits that they are getting. There could be a lack of patriotism. There could be any of that. But just like Dr. Ekwele said, the thing is, do you have the will and do you have the drill to get above that? If you do, you'll find a way to make it work. Thank you. Dr. Odeka.
Okay, so I think we do a lot of reforms in Nigeria. Whoever does reform, I think one of the things that we don't do, which you were doing when you were looking at the reforms over the years, is that we never really look at the impact of our reforms. So there's no documented evidence of the impact. You can come here and tell everybody, you've done this, you've done that, but in this era of technology, it would be nice to go somewhere and read it. So we need to have a culture of documenting, of doing research, even if it's a desktop research in relation to that reform. What impact did that reform have? What were the lessons learned? So that we can translate that lesson from that experience into another one. And also the second one is that we need to tease out the role of the public sector in reform implementation. Whether the role of the public sector is actually to drive policies in relation to reform and then regulate the reform process. That I think that there's a gray area, and I think sometimes the public sector is carrying the burden of not effectively implementing reforms when it is not really their role to implement the reform. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you said it all, but let me also join you to say that FRCN have been a big blessing. I think a number of media houses that I always say, once God takes the glory for who I am today, they can queue and take the glory. FRCN is one of those, and they remain my formidable partner today. Now, simply put, because I want to focus on what my sister said, how you go from having a dream to actually actualizing your dream. And of course, your example is pertinent, which is the youth of this generation. Now, I think my story will bring meaning to this. When I started out to start the foundation, I didn't have the funding. I just had passion, but I wanted to do something and make a meaningful change. And one of the organizations that I approached was the European Union. And on getting to the European Union, first, I wrote for a meeting. It took about 3-4 months before I was invited, so patience, And then when I was invited, I stayed up all night that night to prepare for that meeting. It was going to be just 10 minutes meeting, but I prepared all night, I got there and the lady heard me and everything. And of course, obviously I was passionate. I wanted to make a change and everything, but I didn't have the organization. That's where I was going, So the lady said to me, look, Jake, you have a brilliant idea and all that, but you can't work for us. It was very painful. I sat there not knowing what to do. But you need to learn the power of intuition. And if I connect it spiritually, how to listen to the Holy Spirit in you. Because he just said to me what to tell her. This is the head of corporation. So I looked at her and said, yes, it's true. I didn't come here to lie to you that I have director of finance. I have this, I have that. However, can you please give me a chance, or my organization a chance, that at the end of the day, when we walk and you're satisfied, you can beat your chest to say, I made this organization. That was the game changer. And the lady dropped her pen, looked at me and said, let me talk to the ambassador. The next 2 weeks, the ambassador invited me and said, look, we heard you. We want to try you. And that brings me to my conclusion. Personal integrity. I repeat, personal, and that's what, I'm sorry to say this, that's what most of the youths lack. Personal integrity. Do you have that personal integrity that an organization like the European Union can trust you with money and you come back and account for every penny? Do you have that personal integrity that I can speak to your DG and say to your DG, please give me this airtime, this is how much I have on the project, take all the money and give me time. So it's that personal integrity that gave me credibility. That willingness to account to European Union. I made mistakes, but we've gone from implementing 3 figures to 7 figures to a point that today we no longer write application for project. They just invite us and say, this is how much we have, tell us how we want to implement it and implement. And so you don't work for European Union and you are a greenhorn. You have to be the best. As a matter of fact, other implementing partners are coming to us now because we work for European Union. So that personal integrity and your willingness to be self-accounting. I don't need to wait for anybody to ask me for my books. My books are on the World Wide Web. Everybody can access the account and the report of what TAF Africa is doing and ask me question if there is any form of misappropriation. So integrity is the currency for actualizing your dream if you truly want that dream to come. And please make sure that it's not about you. Take away ambition, focus on vision.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for my panel, please. And for yourselves too. Thank you very much. We'll end the session here. Thanks.
Thank you. Wow, I didn't realize that it's radiating heat, isn't it? Yes.
Welcome you to the second edition of the International Civil Service.
patriot and icon of excellence and the gracious host of this prestigious conference, Mrs. Didi Esther Wilson Jack, OON, MNI. One more round of applause, please, just as it takes her set. Your Excellency, our very dear President, ably represented here by the Secretary to Government of the Federation. Today, we are celebrating an exceptional daughter of Africa, an icon of diplomacy, and a beacon of visionary leadership, Amina J. Mohammed. Her Excellency has continued to distinguish herself on the global stage through service, integrity, intellect, and unwavering commitment to humanity. From Nigeria to the United Nations, she has remained a powerful voice for sustainable development, peace, gender equality, and inclusive progress. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, she's not able to be here with us in person, but she's here to be able to deliver a very goodwill message to this auspicious conference. So if your hands are not President-elect, and we please welcome him with a very deserving round of applause for his goodwill message. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Your Excellency, the President told the story of the civil service transformation very beautifully. They highlighted our enterprise content management, the digitization of our processes, our paperless policy, and also the service-wise GPT, which has made work very seamless in the civil service. And the EPIC culture, of course. Civil servants are now EPIC, efficient, productive, incorruptible, and citizen-centered. No thanks to our amiable head of the civil service of the Federation and her team of transformative permanent
Photographers, we need to do this with some dispatch so we can go back to plenary and our technical sessions. Members of a diplomatic community and development partners, please, you're up next. Thank you, Honorable Ministers. The SGF and the Head of Civil Service will remain. Mr. Richard Montgomery. The ambassadors closest. All right, please let's take our turn. Your Excellencies, members of the diplomatic community and our development partners. Please let's get up close and personal. Let's get up close so that the pictures. Yes, please. Thank you. All right. Photographers, are you done? Thank you. Thank you very much, members of the diplomatic community. You may excuse us now as we allow the head of service to remain with the president's representative as we invite former head of civil service of the Federation and the permanent secretaries to please come up and take their turn. Federal permanent secretaries and heads of services from the 36 states and FCT. We might have to break that in 2 batches as well. Heads of service of countries, not the state heads of services yet. Heads of service of countries and heads of services from the 36 states and the FCT. Heads of service from the various visiting countries, participating countries, and heads of services from the states will be next after the permanent secretaries. If the permanent secretaries are very many, we might break it down to 2-second batch. Yes. Okay. Please, Your Excellency, we might have to break this. Can we break this into 2 batches, please? Because so many of you don't have a position right now. Can I do this? Do me a favor? Thank you. Those of you from here, just stand down. You can join. So you're tall enough, but from. Okay. Please, all of you join. We'll try. It's the beauty of staying together like that big broom that you all represent. The strength of a broom. That's so you can all join. You can do ovation stand, standing sideways. Stand sideways and then look at the cameras. Yes, ma'am. Stand sideways at that end. Hello, sir. Stand sideways and then you look at the cameras. And if you are exiting the stage, please use the other side of the stage, the other stairway. Thank you very much. The next batch, heads of service from the states. Heads of service from the states and from participating countries. Heads of civil service from the participating countries and the 36 states with some dispatch, please. Heads of service from the states and heads of service from the participating countries. Directors generals, executive secretaries, MDs and CEOs of government parastatals, please be on standby for the next batch of photograph. Thank you very much, heads of service. Thank you very much. Can we have the directors generals and executive secretaries and CEOs of government parastatals? CG Immigrations, CG Correctional Service, CG Civil Defense, and representative of the police can join. Executive secretaries and directors generals of parastatals, departments and agencies of government. Directors generals and executive secretaries, MDs and CEOs of government agencies. Thank you very much. We mentioned heads of paramilitary organizations, Commandant General Civil Defense, Controller General of Nigerian Immigration Service, Kemi Nana Nanda, CG Customs if is here. Please, ma'am, CG Immigrations, ma'am, I'm inviting you to join the head of service and the president for a photograph. Including the rep of NDLEA. Hold on please briefly for the CG Immigrations. Ma'am? All right. And then if the head of civil service, as magnanimous as she is, would allow the two masters of ceremony, the three of us, including Stephanie, join you for a photograph. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, heads of paramilitary and formations. Thank you so much. Stephanie. Stephanie? Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Oh, Stephanie is here at last. Representative of governors that are here, Benue State Governor and I think Anambra also. The two representatives, please, can we have you quickly? Thank you very much. Representative of the Governor of Benue State and then was that Anambra. Can we have you quickly? But if you're here alone, us at this point. Thank you, Excellency. Thank you, Your Excellency, the Head of Civil Service. Thank you. As you go back to your seat, let's clear the thoroughfare very quickly. We'll be taking the pledge to bring the opening ceremony to a close. That will be as soon as the special guest of honor returns to his seat. Can we have may we please rise at this juncture for the pledge to bring the opening ceremony of this conference to a close. The anthem, okay, fine. So can we have the first stanza of the national anthem as against the pledge, just rented? Not the pledge, the national anthem, first stanza. Do you have it? If not, we'll recite it with enthusiasm as we're all excited about this. Thank you very much. We wish you a very pleasant day for those of you that are leaving, especially our president who is here represented by the Secretary to Government of the Federation. But for the rest of us, please, the technical sessions continues in the various stages. So you may wish to go to your stage. As you go, I will wish you a very pleasant day ahead. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have a quick announcement on launch. The VVIP court is just right outside this hall. To my left-hand side for the heads of service, head of civil service of the Federation, ministers and diaspora delegates. We have a VIP court behind the presidential pavilion to accommodate permanent secretaries, DGs, heads of service of state, CEOs. To the right inside the pavilion, while directors will be attended to in the same pavilion to the left. For all other delegates, we have 10 food courts just around. Kindly locate food court 1 to 5. We have 2 caterers each there. They will attend to all delegates. For protocol officers, security, drivers, road safety officials, fire service, food courts 6 and 7. Please, we are to reconvene at 2:30, please, for the technical session. Thank you very much. Please, the VVIP is just to my left. For the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, ministers and international delegates.
Check. Good afternoon, and welcome to this session titled Linking Budget, Policy and Delivery to Better Outcomes. You do have to bear with us. The lead speaker is not here yet, but because we are aware, the time is well spent, and this is ready to be marked, so we can't just cancel it. So we have decided to go on with the session. So as a way of, of introduction, my name is Olubumi Olusanya, Permanent Secretary, Federal Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. My panelists here will introduce themselves so that before we get started, please.
Hello, good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mrs. Patience Oyekunle, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felix Okonkwo, Director Macro, Federal Minister of Budget and Economic Planning.
Thank you. Okay, so we are starting. I'm very sure all of you will agree with me that now, globally now, government are facing quite a lot of challenges. There are a lot of economic, uncertainties. There are physical constraints, lack of financial, enough financial resources for government to implement their projects. Then we also have increasing citizen expectations. At the same time, citizens are also demanding for accountability and, openness in all that we do. So when we talk about policy, budget, and delivery, you also agree with me that policy alone does not solve problems. Policy is just government intention, it's government aspiration, and their priority for the country. Most of us who are policy makers, we look at what is happening in our, based on your various mandates, we develop policy to activate, to implement your mandate. And we also know that if you have policy, no matter how well designed that policy may be, it doesn't change lives on its own. So a policy must also be well backed with adequate financial resources, and that is where budgeting comes into play. And budget in this wise is just a financial expression of government priorities. So when you look at a particular budget, you can actually pinpoint where government is going, because we see the resources allocated to each of those activities. But if you have a good policy and you have a good budget and there is no implementation, then nothing, the people cannot see anything. So, and that is why delivery is what people see. Delivery is the point where government meet people. For us as individuals, if you are coming from your house to the office and you are passing through bad road, you have not seen anything. No matter the intention of government on road infrastructure, once you cannot see that road, then it cannot be delivered, no matter the amount that will be allocated for its delivery. So this is the area that we as a public servant, we need to see the linkages between these three policy issues. So that is why we need to link them. Because on their own, each of them cannot achieve a meaningful, tangible and measurable impact to the citizenry. And that is why we are looking at this topic. And you also agree with me that if you want to have a good, if you want government intention to be translated into, tangible result, then we need to link. There must be an alignment between policy formulation, budget allocation, implementation, and a good delivery. It is only when these three parameters work together that government will be in a better position to actually translate intention into realities. So that's why we're here today. So we will look at the various aspects of it. I will allow my brother to talk briefly on budgeting, on policy issues, so that we can see how we can flow. So we can just say something on budget.
Thank you, Permanent Secretary and Moderator. Thank you, guests, distinguished audience. Now, for us, as the Federal Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, we know what we do. Our own is to write the plan for the country, prepare the budget for the country, and ensure that the budget is properly executed. Now, before we did the last plan, which expired in 2025, we had to do what we call review of the plan and to discuss what are those things, why plans fail in the country, why do they fail in the country over the years. And we discovered that one of the major issues is the inadequate linkage between the plan and the budget. And that was what we brought to the attention of government. And that necessitated the reason why government had to bring planning ministry, former Ministry of National Planning Commission, together with the budget office, so that the budget and the plan can speak to themselves. So we have done this, and that is why in that plan we had 3 volumes. Volume 1 is the policy document. Then the volume 2 is a compendium of projects and programs to be implemented over the 5-year duration of the plan. While the last volume are those binding constraints that inhibit plan implementation. Those are what we have in place at the moment. So there is no way we can make progress if the budget and the plan are not linked. And then what is the plan? Plan is what the policies, competitive policies of government. And the policies of government come from the sector ministries. The Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, we don't develop policies. They come from sector MDAs. So when they come together, we now bring together, and that's why we had that volume 1 of the plan, which is a compendium of policies. So the policies will bring the programs, bring the projects, and these projects are contained in the volume 2 of the plan. And the projects are what translates. That's what you have in the budget, and that's what translates to development. So if these things are not aligned together, we are making the greatest mistakes and we cannot make progress. That's the initial comments.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So we can now see that the country is moving forward by putting planning and budgeting together so that there can be an alignment. But we still discuss other issues, the problem, challenges that are confronting us. But before we go to that, I will allow my fellow colleague to also say something about delivery aspect of the whole link.
Yes, thank you very much. I like the way you started, even demand from budget and economic planning. The issue of just planning that does not translate into any impact, it's no longer fashionable. And it's on the basis of that government in its wisdom decided to have a performance management system of these budget cycles that we have been doing year in, year out. And at the federal level, the government set up something we called CDCU or CRDCU for us to be able to track implementation, monitor what is being done, because at the end of it all, we have been able to see that from previous budget plannings, that if you don't track these things, you will not get results. And it is the result that Nigerians want to see. And on the basis of that, the ministers have signed performance contracts with Mr. President. And then permanent secretaries have also signed performance contracts with ministers, and it has been cascaded down. And all is in the effort to ensure that we track the budget and ensure that the impact gets down to everybody, to Nigerians. It should improve infrastructure, it should improve the educational sector, it should improve all the sectors. So that is what I will tell you about delivery and what is being done for us to deliver on the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, let me just add to that delivery. You see, that delivery, it what people, what the citizens see about governance. The policy or the budget doesn't concern them. Where governance meet with the people is outcome of your whatever policy you have implemented. So if you are monitoring and we cannot see the road that say you have, just like it was said during, the first speaker today mentioned it, that citizens measure, the judge governance based on what they can feel, what they can see. Good roads, access to education, access to good hospitals, all those kind of things, what people are looking for, real outcome. And that is what we are not be getting. And that is where, like he said, these linkages become very important, so that for us to achieve, tangible outcome from whatever, government is spending money on. Now that we have already understood the three components now, all of us know what is policy, what is budget, and what is delivery. Now we should now look, if these things are properly linked, what are the benefits? What benefits will citizens derive from them? For example, if they are linked, you have better, result. Development result will be very feasible. Because, for example, if you have a policy on infrastructure, and that policy is well backed with adequate financial resources to implement it, and the implementation is done, strictly, with a follow-up and everything, then you can see that the impact will be felt because the road will be built, infrastructure will be seen. Secondly, it will also eliminate, fragmentation of project and inefficiency. Now, if you look at some budget, even our budget, you will see the same items appearing in 20 ministries, and each ministry cannot even do anything that is tangible. You will see a budget that should cost, let's say 50 million, for example. You see 20 million here, 5 million here, 10 million there. At the end of the day, that it's just wasting of money because you cannot achieve anything. You start, you cannot conclude. So if you have a good alignment, it will also promote efficiency. So the little money we have can be actually spent effectively. It will also help us to increase public confidence. Now, if government, I work in the Ministry of Material Affairs and Poverty Reduction, for example. When we say we have empowered people, so and so, they say, where is a lie? So, because there is no confidence in whatever government says. Actually, you are doing something, but because the impact is not felt by majority, they feel that you are not doing anything. So, if you link these three parameters together and they are working well, then people can see actually the impact of your intervention. And when they see that impact, then the confidence level of citizens towards government will also increase. So these are the reasons why all these things need to be done. And I think there's also, then we can also have stronger accountability. Because for example, if a project will cost 20 million, for example, and that 20 million is released to you as a ministry, you don't have any justification to say that you cannot implement that project. Then accountability becomes very, stronger because you must account for what that money is spent for. So these are some of the major reasons why linking these three parameters are very, very important for us to achieve a better outcome. Where we are not linking them together, we are not achieving good outcome. For example, if you link policy with budget, and there is no good implementation, it's a waste of resources. If you link if you have good policy, you have people who can implement well, and the resources is not available, then it will be zero. So that is why we need to. Now that we have known the advantages of linking them together.
I want to also agree with you, because if we listened to the Minister of Interior earlier today, he said a lot of things about the issue of policies and bringing them to reality, to life. So it is not just the policies that matters, but how do the common person feel these policies? And that is by what they can see. And he gave numerous examples, and people were there to even testify that yes, before now, if you apply for passport, it will take you centuries. But now, in a jiffy, you get it. And one man gave example there. He said he lives in, at least outside Abuja, but he applied, and within 48 hours, he was called. So these are some of the benefits you get when you link these policies and budgeting together. And in the Ministry of Petroleum Resources, I can tell you that because of the policies being linked to budget, that's why you now have different things that we are delivering. For instance, with the global energy crisis, before now, it would have been a problem. There would have been queues all over the place, but policies have translated into making these things available, into making products available. So it's always good that we link policies with our budgets to have good impact. Thank you.
To him, you want to make a little more contribution to this. Then thereafter, let us look at the challenges that we are facing that is not making these linkages to be effective, or where they are not being linked appropriately.
Thank you very much. And talking about outcomes, I believe that there has to be a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift from input-based budgeting to outcomes-based budgeting. We have to shift the emphasis on the benefits of the projects to the people. And that's why we have the need to have the MIE system in place. The MIE system is designed to monitor government programs and projects. And we need to have periodic reviews of budgets, especially the mid-term review of the budget. Every 6 months, we have to have a mid-term review of the budget. And how do we now account for performance of those budgets? It's by conducting these reviews and then ensuring that we monitor outcomes instead of inputs. And when you say, okay, I'm doing a road from Abuja to Lokoja, and the budget 5 trillion for the road, and nobody monitors what is happening. So how do you expect the road to be completed? And how do people benefit from that road? So it's going to be difficult if we don't do this effective monitoring of projects and then de-emphasize input budgeting and they emphasize outcome budgeting. And that's the reason why we encourage citizens, to bring feedback. There should be a feedback loop in the whole process. There should be feedback from citizens. And that's why we have what we call IMAC in our ministry, where people in my village, if there are projects in my village, I can call somebody there and say, okay, what is the situation of that project in my village? Please, can you take photograph and send it to me and upload it even in the platform? There's a platform. Anybody, you can have access to it. Everybody has access to that platform. So if you go to the IMAC, take the picture, put it there, and send it to the platform. In the office, we see the situation of that road. I remember those days, one of the governors in the Southeast said he did a tunnel, the best in the world. And it was in the CNN, who I was hearing because I was not around. I was thinking that I have a good tunnel in my place. So when I got home, I went there and I saw it's just like a small bridge, a small bridge. So because of that, I was shocked to see that nothing actually happened. And if they tell you how much that was expended on that project, you'll be shocked. So it is important that a good monitoring system is in place. It's important that we emphasize outcomes. Outcomes, you have the chain, the MIE chain, input, outcome, and others to impact. So we need to look at the outcome. And that's why in our ministry, we don't even think about input these days. We think of outcomes. So that's the most important thing, so that people will feel it. People should feel the impact of government. And that's why people are complaining, because they're not feeling it. We should tell ourselves the truth. That is the truth in the country today. People are not feeling the impact of government. We are spending so much money. People are not seeing it. So we need to look at these things and do a paradigm shift Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think he has used one stone to kill two birds. He has told us some of the challenges. I also provide solution to them. So maybe you have to anything to add to that. You can, so that we manage our time. You can also provide challenges and solutions.
Okay, thank you. Some of the challenges, or let me add to the challenge he has mentioned. We've talked about budgeting. It's one thing to make the plans. It's another thing for the funds to be released to do those things. If budgets are prepared, what the general public knows is that budget has been prepared. But whether funds are released to do those jobs, they are not aware of it. They just want those deliverables. So I think one of the challenges is release of funds. And of course, the solution is obvious. It's for funds to be released. And then when they are released, they should be used judiciously for what they have been released for. In addition to that, effective monitoring also matters, because you discovered at the ministry's level, those implementing agencies will have to be monitored. Most ministries don't implement, they monitor the agencies that implement. So if there is no good monitoring method in place, it will be very difficult to achieve the kind of results that we all desire.
Thank you. Let me add this one, because we have, capacity also. Institutional capacity is also important, because I have seen places where ministry embark on projects, they don't have capacity to even monitor. They don't even have the capacity within their ministry. But because it's a budget, it's in your ministry, you start, you award, and how can you monitor something you don't have capacity for? So we need to build capacity of our people, so that they will be able to effectively monitor. Because if you go for monitoring, you don't even know what you are monitoring. You just go, like you said, you are just monitoring money spent, not outcome, because you don't even know the quality of what Because you can go to a site and say, okay, they have done the foundation. You don't even know how strong that foundation is. What is do they meet the parameter that is contained in their BOQ? So we should also try to, we need to strengthen our institutional capacity to implement and monitor adequately. So I think the ideas of linking these three parameters is very clear, and I think they are germane, because with increasing physical constraints all over the world, especially in our country, where government have limited resources and so many things to do, then whatever we have, we should be able to manage them effectively. So the little money we are using should also be, we should have a maximum outcome from them. So this responsibility rests with all of us, as individuals, as ministry, as officers. We must ensure that policy, it is our collective responsibility anyway, that policy, budget, and delivery are not run as a separate administrative exercise, but as a coherent and as a unique and a single system that is able to translate government intention into actual realities, into feasible outcome for all of us. So it is not a it's not a question for procurement department or any department alone. It's for all of us. And when we are also developing our budget, we should not just be putting budget for don't do budgeting for activity budget. Yeah, what we were saying, from input to outcome. Some of them just put something so that we can be busy, and we are busy, but there's no impact. And I think this is the lesson from this discussion to me, is that we need to work collectively as a government officers, that we link our budget, our policy, and our delivery are well linked, with the intention of producing tangible and measurable outcome for Nigerian citizens. Our time is well spent, but we will give room for 2 or 3 questions before we close up. So any question, any contribution, 2 or 3, please. Okay, sir. Okay, you can use that mic, sir. I think on it again. Okay.
Hello? My question goes to the Permanent Secretary, Humanitarian Affairs. You see, when we speak about budgeting, yes, it's very interesting and it sounds so beautiful. Relating budgeting with your ministry, because what your ministry is into is humanitarian. It is not visible, but it can be felt. So I would expect, what I'm asking is, please tell us how deliverables can be impacted from your ministry. Unlike Ministry of Works or other conventional ministries, where you can see the vision, like for instance, what the FCT minister is doing, not minding the budget, physical tight budget, he's still delivering all those services, and everybody is applauding him within the limited resources he has. So, but your ministry is peculiar, even vis-a-vis the petroleum ministry too. How do we see deliverables from your own ministry? That's the question, sir.
You can see it. This is it. Humanitarian affairs deal with poor people and vulnerable population. And those population, they know themselves. If you go to any rural area, poor community, and you ask them about what government is doing for them, if they have been receiving, support, they will tell you. So feasibility in that area is by, engaging with those beneficiaries. For us in the ministry, we have what we call National Social Registry, which contains the name of vulnerable and poor people in the country. And the purpose of that, and this to ensure that our impact can also be measured, those people in those registers are being linked with their national identification number. And if we say we have impacted somebody's life, we can actually trace that person to his home, because the name is also geotag. We know where they live, everything. So, but if that's why we're talking about adequate budgeting for government policy. It's a government policy to support the vulnerable. But if you have, the population of Nigeria, but if you have limited resources, that can also only attend to maybe 0.5% of the population of the poor. By the time you do your survey, you just say no. You not look as if you have not done anything. And that is why we are saying we must link policy with budget, adequate budget, not just budget. Because if let's just take a family of 5, for example, you are able to provide just for a child out of 5 children, and you now say you say you are trying because of limited resources, and somebody say let me go and assess, maybe you are even trying. You call the first 4 children who did not get anything, and they say this might not do anything. So that is the challenge we are having, and that is why we are talking of linkages, so that everything can be feasible. Like we said, Nigeria will even know, because in your community, somebody who maybe there's a flooding incident or there's one problem, and you can see that people are supported with maybe relief materials, and after that they are even giving some stipend to do 1 or 2 things. You will know that something has happened in their lives, so it's also feasible. So, and the problem is just the scale, and that's why what we need to work on. Okay.
In addition to what the PS has said, you can measure what the ministry is doing. We know the level of poverty in the country. We know it. So if every year we look at poverty level, if it's increasing, then we know that the policy of government to address poverty is not working. So we have to tweak it. So, but if it's reducing, you know that the impact of government policies is working. So that is one level where you can measure what the Ministry of Humanitarian is doing. You know, they are dealing with a lot of, okay. Well,
the next session is already there in. So another question, we say want to give room for 1 or 2. Another question, okay, sir.
Planning and program management. I want to quickly share our experience on managing for results, which is similar to what has already been shared. What happens is that when we had what we call the Second Republic, you know, after our founding president Mugabe, the new president set a vision, which we call Vision 2030, which is to make Zimbabwe an upper middle income society by 2030. And it was divided into two phases. The first phase, which ended last year, and the new phase, which we are in, which is going to end in 2030. So for each phase, we develop what we call the National Development Strategy. So now we are in the National Development Strategy 2. So from the National Development Strategy, we then develop what we call a results framework, where each sector, ministries are classified into sectors. They are classified into 10 sectors. All the ministries and related MDAs, they feed into that sector. So they develop their results framework. And then from the results framework, each MDA will then develop a 5-year strategic plan. From the 5-year strategic plan, the MDAs then do their annual operational plans, where they detail the outputs which they will be working on during that that period. Besides the annual operational plans, they then develop a monitoring plan, which then monitors these annual operational plans on a quarterly basis. So that's how we monitor performance, focusing on our plans. But we have not yet come to our outcomes, because plans are just, for our outputs. Outputs are just what you would have produced, and we separate them from activities. Then from outputs, we then focus on our outcomes. Have we made a change? Have we made an impact? Have we increased the number of children that were immunized as an outcome? And then finally, we then look at the impact, which may need perhaps 2 years, 3 years to realize. So that is how we do it. But within the annual plan, we also have what we call 100-day projects, rapid results projects which we identify, which are high impact projects, which are monitored after every 100 years. And to top it up, we then ask citizens, we carry what we call citizen satisfaction surveys, and ask them to see whether the efforts of government are changing their lives. I thought I should share this little experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing that experience. And I think it's similar to what we have here in Nigeria too. But we can also, what we need just to strengthen it further to ensure that every loopholes are blocked and we focus on outcome. So thank you for sharing. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I think we are done here. We use this floor to the next session. Thank you. See you tomorrow. Let me also thank my panelists. You know, we thought we are all of us are panelists, but one way or the other, we thought ourselves to lead speaker, and at least we continue the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Thank you very much to our panelists. Please, we would like to have a group photograph and then the attendance. Attendance.
Who is taking the photograph?
Photograph. The attendance, please. Sir, ma, please, you have to sign our attendance. Sorry, the attendance. Through your phone, just digital. Thank you very much. Moving over to our next session, financing reform in a time of tight budget. Our lead panelist. Please, the attendance for the participants. Please help us sign the attendance before you leave. It's digital, just scan the code. Thank you very much. We are moving over to the next session, ladies and gentlemen. Our next session topic is financing reform in a time of tight budgets. Our lead panelists, we have Mrs. Ashatu Gogo, and then we have Mr. Ishaku Musa Mohammed. Is he around? Mr. Andrew David. Mr. Andrew David, welcome to stage. Mr. Chris Okeke. Mr. Chris Okeke. Mr. Innocent Ijolu. Sir, please take, ma, please take. Mohammed who?
Shahid.
Mohammed Musa.
Shahid. Police Trust Fund.
No.
Police Trust Fund. What is the topic?
The topic is.
The same topic.
Yes.
Yes. It's the same topic.
Okay.
Financial reform in a
tight budget. Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is what they send, Dr.
Is there?
Alhaji Mohammed Shaidu, number 3.
Oh, okay. What I have here is Dr. Ishaku Musa. Mr. Ishaku Musa Mohammed.
No, look at it.
Okay, so I'll call your name, Mr. This.
Alhaji Mohammed Shaidu.
Alhaji Mohammed Shaidu. This exists. Okay.
Alhaji Mohammed Shaidu.
Yes,
okay,
he's right here.
They have Chris Okeke and Innocent
Ijolu.
Yes.
I don't think they arrived. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Distinguished delegates, my name is Dr. Aisha Tugogwendayako, Permanent Secretary, Ecological Projects Office, Office of the Secretary to the Federal Government. I will be the lead speaker, and my co-panelists will introduce themselves. Dr. Aisha.
Thank you. Good afternoon, lead presenter, co-panelists, and the audience. My name is David Adejo Andrew. I'm a retired public civil servant. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sanusi Aliyu Name Bindiga. I'm representing the Executive Secretary in Nigeria Police Trust Fund, Mohammed Shayidu.
So, distinguished delegates, respected public servants, development partners, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to present a paper on the topic, Financing Reforms in a Time of Tight Budgets. Governments across the world are experiencing unprecedented fiscal constraints driven by rising debt obligations, inflationary pressures, demographic shifts, climate-related expenditures, declining development assistance, and increased citizen demands for quality public service. At the same time, government revenues are limited, while national debts and economic uncertainties continue to grow. In many countries, including Nigeria, public institutions are being asked to do more with less. In this context, financing public service reforms has become both essential and more difficult. This situation requires governments to rethink how public funds are generated, managed, and used. Thus, reform financing should not be viewed as an expenditure, but as strategic investment in state capacity. Public sector reforms are indispensable for effective governance, economic development, transparency, accountability, and citizen trust. So, what is financing reform? It simply means improving the way government raises money, spends money, manages resources, and delivers services. Now, public service or public sector reforms are indispensable. They are the backbone for effective governance, economic development, transparency, accountability, and citizen trust. Challenges of tight budgets. Most of the key challenges currently faced by nations globally include limited resources. And this has a huge impact on ability to fund budgets. This also means that you have higher risks of citizen dissatisfaction. And now governments must make the difficult choice of prioritizing where they put their money. So strategies to approach financing reforms. Government must think smarter, use better system, and use things that will provide sustainable results. So for smarter spending, you have to go innovative, digitization, using technology, strengthening monetary systems, partnering globally, leveraging on private-private partnerships, and essentially you must ensure and entrench that transparency and accountability in the public service is entrenched. You must fund institutions that ensure that that is holding on. The role of the civil service in financing and ensuring that reforms work. The civil service is central to the success of any reform. The civil servants are responsible for policy implementation, budget management, monitoring public projects, ensuring compliance with regulations. And to succeed, the civil service must embrace professionalism, innovation, integrity, capacity building, digital transformation, and result-oriented leadership. In conclusion, government must finance institutional reforms during periods of fiscal tightening without undermining service delivery or microeconomic stability. Now, what I try to do is give an overview of the entire topic. Now we'll engage it individually from the perspective of my panelists. Dr. Adejo, who is a doctor, Adejo, will give an overview of his experience in the civil service on the essence and what kind of reforms have the most effect on public service output. Thank you.
Hello, please, if you know what it takes to sit down in the night, struggle, write paper to present, when she finished, at least we should clap for her. Thank you, madam, for literally making my job easier. Well, when I saw the topic, financing reforms in times of tight budgets, the question I asked myself is, the reforms almost are characterized with tight budgets. Before you want to do a reform, something is a problem. If something is going on well, you don't need to bother yourself. Except for few cases, it's been proven globally, even in Nigeria. We do reforms when we want to solve a problem. And by the time you're already trying to solve a problem, other problems are so many that you are grappling with resources to fund. Except for cases like where we had the oil boom in the early 70s, and in the Arab world, mid-20th century, they had the bloom. If not, most of the time, reforms are always under tight budgets. And she's giving us a very broad perspective. But because we are attending International Civil Service Conference, I will limit my interjection to how to finance civil service reforms within tight budgets. And I'll take just from the approaches she has given. The first one is that you spend smarter. What that is telling us is that you prioritize your spending. And when you want to prioritize your spending, the first thing you look at many options, but the first thing you realize is that the civil service itself, the major bulk of its funding, of its expenditure is on recurrent. You pay salaries, you take care of pension, and you want to look, because the capital projects you do are technically outsourced. So those are the things, for you to look at that, there are many options you have when you want to fund a reform within those tight budgetary constraints. So when you look at the ministries, extraministerial departments and agencies, the first thing you want to do is to remove duplication. Where there are ministries, extraministerial departments and agencies doing the same thing, you remove them or you merge them so that you are able to reduce overhead costs. A situation where you have 3-4 agencies, or even in a ministry, 2-3 units doing the same thing. By the time you merge and collapse them, that unit will now become one, so the resources going there will not be too much. So, in other words, for some of us, we think that reform should even fund itself. You shouldn't go outside looking for money when you are doing a reform. I'll give an example. When the country started IPPIS, you remember one of the gains we had was that they eliminated a number of ghost workers. But rather than that savings they made coming to improve even the IPPIS or other reform process, they returned it to Treasury. Yeah, you can return it to Treasury, but you can still make it available. So the second mechanism of funding reforms under tight budget, especially civil service, is to return, even if not all, a good percentage of monies you saved from reforms to continue reforms. Sorry, madam, I'm stealing from your document. Am I okay? That's okay. I shouldn't continue. Okay. Now, another thing you also need to look at is that she has talked here about leveraging public-private partnership for reforms. For instance, the ongoing reforms now in the civil service has 6 pillars. I'll just take one. The issue of capacity building and what is it now? Talent management. Government capacity building is necessary for the civil service, but government cannot carry all the burden. So you leverage, talk to private sector. And luckily, in the context we are in, the Agimokwete Foundation is providing some level of capacity building for officers in the service. That is a form of leveraging public-private partnership for reforms. And when you go into, anyway, let me stop here. Thank you, so that my brother can have things to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can tell from his depth of knowledge how he brought it into perspective from different reforms, from the Udoji down to the Orosai reforms and down to what is currently happening. So, Mr. Shaidu, or representative of Mr. Shaidu, give us your perspective on this topic.
Hello? Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. And thank you, sir, for your wonderful insight. The topic is very apt, especially now that not only in this country, not only in Africa, but globally, we're faced with a lot of disruptions as a result of actions and non-actions of others without our own control. For instance, the challenge between Russia and Ukraine has put a lot of pressure on resources and logistics and supply chain management. Similarly, the challenge of Iran, US, and Israel is also doing a lot to affect resources available. However, budgeting in a tight financing in a tight budget is as old as human civilization. There has always been scarce resources against so many wants. So the main issue is to deliberately be more effective and efficient in resource allocation. The panelists before us talk about budget processes, and this is directly linked to what we're doing. I will speak with particular reference to the experience of Nigeria Police Trust Fund. When we came on board, our major source of funding became a subject of litigation between some state government and the federal government, and such the share of the state and local government was stopped abruptly at the middle of a budget. And that is, if you look at it, that's almost half of the funding coming to the trust fund. So the trust fund has to look inward and readjust and reevaluate and refocus areas. We actually deliberately focus on the low-hanging fruits, which is training, because we know the human resources in any human endeavor is the most important aspect. Where you have the most efficient human capital, you'll be able to utilize the little resources available to you. So we did a lot of training on capacity building and utilization of limited equipment and resources given to Nigerian police. And I think if Madam will kindly permit me, we should all clap for the Nigerian police. They are doing a lot to secure our country. And one other issue we could look at is the use of technology. When you use technology, you actually prune down processes and make it more efficient, and you are able to track available resources to outcomes. So using technology is also a very good window. And one other important aspect from Madam's presentation is partnership. Because of the constraints of the resources we face, we try to leverage on G2G, government-to-government partnership. We went into partnership with NALDA, the REA, the Ministry of Digital Communication and Digital Economy, and a lot of others in order to leverage internal capacity in order to create value for the system. And I can tell you we're able to achieve more with less. That is called efficiency. We're able to get the REA to come and put solar lights in our police divisions, especially the smart police station we are doing for police, and even the force headquarters. So that has really made police response time more efficient, more effective. And thirdly, I would also emphasize with what Madam has presented, upholding transparency and accountability, where you adopt that as a major benchmark. They say judge yourself before you are judged. So you avoid wastages and you are able to do more with less. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed Shaidu. You are representing him very well, and we appreciate the Nigerian police force. Let me come up with, let me remind you of one of the roles of the public service globally. This is a quote by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Prime Minister of the UAE. He said, "Happiness is a personal choice, but it is the role of government to produce the enabling environment for it." So in that context, and in the context of today's International Civil Service Conference, I would want to ask Dr. Andrew, we as governments are pursuing the ideals of reforms, resilience, and results. So what are key takeaways as public servants here that even if we didn't remember anything, we should take it away from this afternoon's lecture? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam. She insists on calling me a doctor because she knows I'm a native doctor. Now, the theme of this year's international conference is reforms, resilience, and results. And what the Office of Head of Service have tried to do with this conference is, to my own understanding, is as much as possible to percolate ideas into the civil and, to a large extent, the public service that will make us become individual reformers. Individual reformers, because no matter what the head of service or your PAMSEC does, if you are not convinced of the need to follow in their path, they are just wasting their time. Reforms are not easy, either as a collective or as an individual. Because first and foremost, when you see some reforms, the first, your knee-jerk reaction is that these reforms are coming to affect me negatively. So in terms of reforms, I want to say that a takeaway from this meeting here today should be that, look, so long as 2-3 persons have seen that this reform is good, the civil service have said this reform is good, I have done my own analysis and I don't have a better idea. Let me try and see how I can contribute to making these reforms work. On the side of resilience, like I said, reforms are not easy. When you make that individual decision to make that reform work, whatever aspect of reform is, so you make that decision to make it work, you need to have an inner iron. Because just like I used to tell newly married couples, it happened to me. It was when I have decided that I want to marry my wife that I started seeing some other beautiful girls. But I have to close my wife. No, but that's the honest truth. So any guy that I say, look, this period is a temptation period. So once you decide you want to pursue a reform, you start getting temptations and things that will want to make you, it will divert you. But if you remain the course, by the end of the day, you start contributing to producing the results. And if there's a God, which I know there is, you definitely get the benefits of that decision. That is what I say, I think. Thank you.
Financing reform today, delivering a better tomorrow. You have the unique perspective of working with one of the biggest public service institution in Nigeria. You are looking at after the pension funds of our Nigerian police officers. What is your take and what is your key takeaway from this afternoon's lecture that will be of benefit to our audience? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, the Nigerian police force is actually one of the biggest and most sensitive institutions in this country. If I may give you perspective, currently we have more than 371,000 police officers and about 50,000 are being recruited. So before the end of the year, we should be having about 420-something thousand police officers, which is going to take us to the UN goal, ratio of 1 policeman to 400,000. So that is the goal of Mr. President, and we should clap for him. It's a deliberate policy, and one of the major things we did when we came on board was we did need assessment and look at the peculiarities of the police force and their numerous challenges. And I would say, in reference to the topic, that our members of the police force are some of the most resilient public servants we have in this country, because they are working under conditions that are very difficult, risky, and to a large extent unappreciative. So we have deliberately decided to work on their welfare, such as a post-service, and we're currently working on police housing scheme. We discovered that one of the biggest requirements in life is shelter, and many of the police officers are not even housed in their quarters because there aren't enough. So we are currently working on police housing scheme, where we will make sure, with the blessing of Mr. President, that every police officer in Nigeria will own his own house. We are also looking at the aspect of the police spouses. We know how barrack life is. Some of us grew up in barrack, and we are working out on giving the spouses of the police officers skills acquisition and starter packs in relevant areas such as fashion design, agriculture, and farming, poultry, livestock farming, and hairdressing, or what you call saloon. So we're doing that in order to reduce the life pressure on these police officers. And I would say that we are already seeing better outcomes. We've had some obstacles, elections in this country, and we have monitored the services of the police, and we are saying that there's a remarkable improvement. And as we continue to ponder on ways to enhance the efficiency and the capacity of the police personnel, we are partnering with a lot of other agencies, such as the UNDP, the China Aid, JICA. We are also looking at partnership with one of the best police departments in the world, the New York Police Department, in order to improve the skills and efficiency of our police. Thank you very much.
So, thank you all for listening. I think now we can take questions. Yes.
Good afternoon, the high table and fellow colleagues and delegates. My name is Amos Tabi. I'm a deputy director from Nigerian Building and Rural Research Institute. My question is, why think of a reforms when you know there is no resources or there are no resources to finance it? Why think about it at all?
Let me first and foremost say that it's not aspects of reforms that need money. I'll give an example. If you need to change a rule, you need to change a law. Most of the times, if you don't have money, you're advised to start with low-cost, high-impact reforms. And as we speak, one of the easiest reforms we can do that has been done is changes to the public service rules. Maybe you might not see it as a reform, but it is a reform that before now, women go for maternity leave for 3 months. It has been increased to 6 months. Men don't go for paternity leave. They've been given paternity leave. What that does is that it's giving the people some feeling of belonging, that if the system is thinking of me this way, when I finish my maternity leave, I should be able to put in more. So it's not all reforms that need money. And to say that there are some times, whether you have the money for it or not, you must undertake a reform. An example was when COVID-19 struck. Did any country complain they didn't have money? It's an emergency. So definitely you must think of, so it's not the lack of money. I think she mentioned it in her speech, that reform is not only about financial, it's also about strategic management. So when you look at that aspect, then you can answer the question that, well, you don't need to have money to start a reform, because you can get the money to finance that reform from the reform when you start making some gains in it. I just say I should share. Maybe you can.
Thank you very much, our well-trusted native doctor. My brother, you see, reform, like my senior brother just mentioned, is different levels. One of the major reform you can do is attitudinal change reform, from negative attitude to positive attitude, from how can we do it to yes, we can do it, from how do we get it done, yes, we'll look inward and leverage on the available resources to get outcomes delivered to people. These are reforms and they cost little. Sometimes all you need to do is put in that mindset that we are going to do it and we're going to find the ways and means to get it done is enough to get you resources to start your reforms. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. In addition to what my two panelists have said, let me remind you that one of the biggest reforms globally is giving the citizens the right to know how funds are generated by their governments and how funds are spent. Also, even in today's Nigeria's public service, one of the biggest reform is you redeploy talent, you reskill, you retrain a person and redeploy him to where he's best suited. And then another thing we do is exploring partnerships. Partnerships do not mean that it must be cost derived. So you can lean on others to achieve what they know, learn from each other. You have a gentleman from another country here. He spoke about what is going on in his country. So peer review, talking to each other, International Civil Service Conference is also a reform. We're opening the Nigerian civil service to peer review and an opportunity to learn from various agencies. This is the first time all of us are coming together to sit together and learn what we are doing and what works and what does not work. All of these are reforms that do not cost money. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my permanent secretary, and the other panelists. My name is Baderi Babawale, and my question is, listening to the paper and the comments from everyone this afternoon, I want to ask, while doing a reform, I have discovered that most times or oftentimes we usually have a kind of unintended causes that comes out of reform. And these unintended causes at times either frustrate or delay the reform. And the management of that has always been very problematic. So how do we manage unintended causes while we are planning and organizing a reform? That's one. The second layer of it, is that there seems to be no synergy, interagency or interministerial synergy during reform in this country. So how do we get other ministries and agencies to work together and avoid this duplication and this attitude of this area is mine, and while allowing the reform to drag? Thank you.
Two questions you raised. The first one is, or let me start from the back, is absence of interministerial coordination in reforms. The second one is, what is it? The first, which is actually the first one, unintended consequences. Reform did not come from outside the world. Reform is a process. And like for every process, before you start it, you want to think, what are the things that are likely to go wrong? You've defined all of them. And because you are not God, you've done the best you can. I woke up from my house today that I'm coming for this place. What I needed to do, get into my car, drive down, come here, finish, and go. But somewhere along the line, something might happen. Road safety man might stop me and collect. But I say I don't have my driver's license. So the point I'm making is that for reforms, yes, you must have unintended consequences because you want to change from what you were doing before. But you have to prepare to handle those unintended consequences. From my experience, I'm sorry to say there are some unintended consequences that you cannot deal with, especially if it's an unintended cause that comes from the political will of the leader. There's nothing you can do about that but to rest. How do they say? Go back to fight another day. But as far as if you are the reformer, you have to prepare that, yes, I'm moving from point A to point B. In my moving from point A to point B, XYZ can happen. If XYZ happens, this is the way I'm going to deal with it. But if A, B, C that I did not prepare for happens, then that time I'll have to think of it. Because reform is a continually dynamic process. On the idea of lack of interministerial, I think we are better before. Before I left service, we were getting much better. I'll give you an example of digitalization. Digitalization, before every ministry was doing their own thing. But the head of service now said, no, there is a process. This is what you do, this is what you... Initially, some of us said, okay, we'll follow the process, but we can get different service providers. The head of service said, yes, you can get different service providers. But we'll now discover that those different service providers are giving you a different solution that will not interface with the one that is more robust. You get my point? So interministerial coordination is getting better. If you look at the 8 ministerial, what do they call it, priority areas? For each of the priority areas, there are some where 3-4 ministries are responsible for hitting one deliverable. So you must be forced to collaborate if you know your performance will affect my own. So I think it's getting better. To the extent that we are human beings, you can't eliminate all because there are some people that are so silo-infested in their thinking. But so long as you have a permanent secretary that believes in interministerial coordination with relevant ministry, you can go home and sleep. It's far better than before. Thank you.
In addition to what Dr. Ade just said, do not forget that each reform has an outcome, and you are supposed to measure the impact and document the process with evidence. That will help you correct whatever unforeseen incidents happen during the implementation of a reform. Our time is up, but let us leave this with you. Together, through responsible financial reforms and effective public service, we can create stronger institutions, protect our countries, and improve the quality of lives of our people. Thank you.
This is a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much. The group photograph. No. The photographer is here. Thank you. Please, you help us sign the attendance. Thank you. Please, you help us sign the attendance. Attendance for the panelists, please. Yes, it's digital. You just scan. Yes, sir. Sir, please, the attendance for the panelists. Huh? Attendance for the panelists.
What do I do?
Yes, just scan and fill.
On my phone?
Yes, sir.
See, I missed that in my other because I was rushing to.
Thank you. Please, dear participants, after this, the attendance for the participants will be displayed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, have you?
You brought your card?
Attendance for the participants, please. The participants, please fill the attendance before you leave. Thank you. Please fill the attendance before you leave. Thank you.
Check, 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 check.